Unfiltered, episode 6. He's Isaac.
He's Philip.
We are
Unfiltered.
We're really working on our intro.
We could probably use some tips and tactics to help our intro be better.
You got a slogan or a catchphrase? We're ready for it. Leave it in the comment, please.
Please help us.
Lindsay's over there running the podcast as
What's
always.
up?
She's got a microphone. She's ready to weigh in. Our esteemed guest today is the one and only Timothy James Heisterkamp.
Hey.
Hey. Who I happen to also call Dad, Father. That's the way it is. That's your title.
That's who I am. Yep.
And I mean, this podcast has been a dream. We're doing it now. We're in it. We're in the dream. But you have been on my list as an interviewee since day one that I knew I wanted to start a podcast. So the fact that you're here is kind of like, this is big. This is big for me.
Oh, that's exciting for me.
Well, that's good. So if you would have been like, yeah,
No.
I'd be like, okay, let's just wrap it up and start over. But
Actually, I was kind of more like, why wasn't I the first one?
yeah, honestly,
It's like Justin Robbins before me, really?
Ooh, called out.
So
I like beef.
yeah, we've got some Robbins Landon cattle steak upstairs, so we're gonna chow on that later, Justin.
All right.
That was funny. And honestly, with the utmost honesty, I did not want to have you first because I felt like I needed practice sessions first.
Oh.
And so that's where he and I did our first one, just to get our feet wet,
Yep.
just to see how
Gotcha.
this would go. So
Gotcha.
we're 6 episodes in. Now it feels like I'm not a pro. Our intro slogan definitely represented that. We're not professionals yet, but
Right. We can get into a conversation.
we can get into a conversation.
Excited to do
Yeah.
that with you
Yeah.
today.
We are ready to do that
I'm
with you.
stoked. Yep.
We're coming highly caffeinated and prepared
Yeah.
for just a great discussion.
Got the coffee.
Coffee.
Always the coffee right here. And the water. Got to stay hydrated. I gave you the Hawkeye mug because I figured you wouldn't drink it if it was a cyclone.
I would.
That hurts.
Minnesota Gophers, though? No way.
No way.
I'm not a Minnesota Gopher.
Actually, I like Minnesota Gopher volleyball. That might be my favorite volleyball team.
They're fun to watch.
Minnesota
Which-
Gophers.
Yeah, since your wife is the varsity volleyball coach, that's a completely normal statement.
Yeah, we love volleyball in our
Yeah.
house.
Right on. Sisters
Best
played.
sport.
They went far. Yeah. Volleyball's good. We're
It's
trying to
fun.
get a intramural or I don't know, a adult league volleyball team going. We failed this year.
We did
but
fail. Next year we'll
next
try
season
again. Yeah.
we'll get a team going. You can sub if
Sure.
you want. You can be on the team.
Yeah.
We could.
I'll
We
have to
can
see if I
form.
can still play. So we'll see.
I'm sure you'll get there.
We should really get your mom playing on our team. That would be
Yeah.
that would
my
be
gosh.
nice.
Are you free?
Let's go, Chris.
Let's see.
She can coach you.
And maybe that's what we need.
That would work.
Yeah. Come tournament time.
Gonna-
Isaac, watch your platform. That's
Yep.
a volleyball term.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I don't
Watch your
know.
platform.
Yeah, I'll need a lot of coaching. I
Right.
don't know how you coach short with no jumping ability, but I'm sure she could do it.
That's called a defensive specialist. There is a place for people like that on the volleyball court.
Perfect. I've got a place.
Yeah.
All right.
You've got a place. You
Or it's
do have
the,
a place.
Thank you.
or it's the
place is right
manager.
I'm just taking too much attention here, so let's.
Oh my. That's a reference to an earlier joke.
Yeah.
That is great. Anyway, you're a CFP. You're a certified financial planner.
It's what I do.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
But it's not who you are. Is that
No.
correct?
That is correct.
Because you don't find your identity from what you do necessarily.
No, I don't. Now, do I get a lot of fulfillment out of what I do and in helping people? Of course I do. But, it's interesting because I've actually been thinking about this very topic, identity, a lot lately. And I've been listening to a few teachings on it. Reading a book about it where he's got a couple of chapters in there, an Andrew Womack book. But I remember early on in my Christian walk, a guy that discipled me, his name was Michael, and I still remember one of the first things he'd teach me about knowing who you are in Christ, your identity. And what was interesting, he went and pointed out the beginning of every single epistle in the New Testament that Paul wrote. And he always starts it off, I, Paul, comma, a bondservant of the Lord Jesus Christ. So Paul always started off identifying who he was. And one of my, early on in my Christian walk, I was taught, make sure you know where your identity is and make sure that you know your identity is in Christ. And that was huge for me. Never thought it. I've never forgot it. It's probably one of the great teachings that I've ever had given to me by another person. And I try to remind people, if I ever get a chance to deliver a sermon anywhere, I talk about identity and make sure you know who you are in Christ. So
Yeah.
I mean, boy, we're into that idea,
Big
are we
time.
not? And you've preached this exact concept
Yeah.
where, and the whole idea is I'm a chiropractor, you're a preacher, you're a financial planner. These are things we do, but what we do is a result of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
What we do does not define who we are. Who we are defines what we do. It's the opposite. It's the inverse. It starts with what you believe about yourself and about, your worldview and all that stuff. That's a different conversation. But, you've often preached from the pulpit, if we just go there, we're sitting here as Christian men, that you should identify yourself as a Christian first, like you're saying, I, Paul, bondservant of Christ. And then what you do comes after that. Like,
Right.
I'm Philip.
Right.
I'm a Christian. I follow Christ. And I do chiropractic work.
Yeah. And then interesting, a lot of people will identify themselves by their job.
Yeah.
Who are you? Well, I'm a chiropractor. I'm a pastor. I'm a certified financial planner. Or when you're with somebody, it's who are you? Well, I'm Philip's dad.
Sure.
There's all sorts of different ways you can identify yourself. But number one, we are children of the living God.
Right.
We
Right.
are Christians.
Right.
We got to identify with that family, just like how we all have, you guys both have the same last name because you're of the same
Right.
bloodline. Well,
Right.
if we're all in him, we're all part of his family, then it ought to be, I'm Isaac, Christian.
Bro.
I'm in Christ.
Bro.
We're bros too.
In a way,
Yeah.
brothers in Christ. There is that concept of
that's
leaving
right.
your mother and father, and then
That's right.
but then, which is an aspect of our relationship, because at some point, this was how it was described to me. It was a clear father-son relationship, but then as time goes on, we become less father-son and more like not superior, but on the same
We're
level
equals.
of equals.
Because I
correct.
learned so much from you. I'm
Well,
how many years older than you? This year, I guess I will be twice your age.
yes.
I don't know if you thought about that.
I have, yep.
But I love listening to you. Every time you start talking about your gift, your skill in chiropractic, I'm just like a sponge. I want to know more, and I don't know. It just helped me out a lot. It helped me out a lot with my own health and not only understanding chiropractic, but understanding diet and exercise, sleep. The Magnificent Seven. I won't tell them all. I won't talk about them all. They'll say you can have that thunder another day.
Sure.
So, but,
Well, you made a comment. Watch your platform, right?
Yeah.
Which, the foundation. It's in health. There's a foundation that you should do
right.
on a regular basis, and that's why we're going to get into money here in a little bit in finances, because that's kind of what we want you to help bring a foundational tactics on what you ought to do with your money on a regular basis from an early or as soon as possible.
Mhm.
But
Well, I think it's so interesting to have a father-son dynamic at the table. We don't get that every podcast. And so, since that was already brought up, what does that relationship for you guys look like as Philip has grown into the fine young man that he is today? And for you as a father, raising him and then watching him go off and now being back in same town. I imagine you guys see a fair amount of each other. What is your relationship like now? And how has that changed over time?
I guess it's always been, we've always had a pretty close relationship, although I'm not a small personality. And I think there's probably times if I would had a chance to change anything when Philip was a boy, teenager, even in college, I would try to listen a lot more. I think I fix things. I do things. I'm a typical guy. What guys want to fix things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times, and I can't remember any specific things particular, but you maybe started talking and it didn't take me long to dominate the conversation and say, here's what you got to do, and get in that teacher mode and here's what you got to do. And I probably listen a lot more now because he's got a lot to share and has learned a lot. And, I tell young guys, especially young guys that get into the financial profession, I have a friend. His name is Max. I'll call out Max. Hey, Max, how you doing? I hope you watch this. But I always tell Max that I am is just as interested to learn from him as he is from me. And I think he gets blown away by that. He goes, I don't have anything to teach you. Like, oh, yeah, you do, Max. I mean, you've had all these great classes, at college, and I know you've learned a lot. And so anyway, I just think, in any relationship, and I think this is true with Philip and me, is that there's always something to learn. And you just got to shut up and listen a little bit more. So anyway, that's to answer your question. I'd say that's probably one thing, but I would say, yeah, it's, I think we're probably more friends now too. I think we like hanging out together, doing stuff.
100%. Sure.
But there's still the dad here.
Yeah.
I mean, like the other day when we had 8 inches of snow, I called him and asked him, hey, did you get your snow cleared? I got a snowblower, And he goes, yeah, I was out there with the shovel. All right.
Haven't quite risen to that stage where I'm privileged with a snowblower. I'm still in the early onset there.
You can go buy one.
Yeah, well, this is true. This is true. And you did do a fatherly thing, and you bailed me out, and you helped me with the office because I have
Well, actually, it was done. I never did tell you that. I went up to the office, and it was done already.
Oh, well, by golly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
One of your
mysterious
neighbors
soul.
did.
Yeah.
I think I know who it was.
Was it? Yeah.
It was also probably Tim.
Tim.
Yeah, Pound.
Thanks, Tim. Pound.
So maybe.
Unless it was someone else,
It could've been
and you're
someone else.
watching this, and I just misguided credit. Sorry. Please let me know. I'll take you. I'll buy you a coffee or something.
Yeah. So
Is there ever like I know sometimes like with sons and fathers, there's like an independence, almost like struggle or like a power struggle. Do you guys ever feel that way when you're together? Like I want to do my thing, or I want you to do the thing that I want to do. Do you guys ever feel that way? Put you on the spot.
I don't.
Not
I don't
necessarily.
think so.
No. And our relationship has evolved enough that it's cohesive. So
Yeah, it's a lot of it centers around Ellie.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
our grandchildren and just the relationship, and then what time we do have, it's like because we're both families are pretty busy, and it's okay. Let's break bread together. Let's have a dinner together,
Sure.
and whatnot. But I can see times where maybe we'll go fishing together. I guess the last summer we golfed, together.
Yep.
When you did your triathlon a couple of years ago, I was there as a support, and that was really, really enjoyed that a lot. So
You guys just kind of hang out and enjoy
yeah,
some manly things with each other.
we have a ping pong table now, so
This is true.
That's fun.
Oh,
This is true.
Who's the best ping ponger?
Okay. It's evolved because last time we played, he took 2 out of 3 from me.
That is
But-
true.
Up until that point, I typically got the better of him, but then he turned the tables on me last time. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, I got to start playing with my good hand. I always play with my left hand.
and that's this is where
Just kidding.
he kind of I think he truly does hold back on me. There's just like the
Nope.
fatherly strength that comes from age and time that he has, and it's just like when he turns it on, it's like, oh, Captain America showed up versus
Yeah, no,
let me.
I won't ever. I'd let you do a lot of things, but I won't let you win at ping pong, ever.
Noted. I'm ready to throw down anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Do it again.
Wow.
Oh man, where to even go from this? I guess I really want to know like what your favorite movie is, honestly, too, because I think
Oh.
you listed off a couple earlier, and I think we have a lot of the same.
Yeah, I like the movies like The Patriot, Gladiator, Last Samurai. I like kind of like those war movies a
Sure.
bit, but probably one of my all-time favorites has got to be Cinderella Man. The
Oh, yeah.
story of
100%.
James Braddock, boxer,
Yep.
went into the Great Depression, things got tough, and he kind of got demoted and kind of got kicked out of the boxing, and then got an opportunity to come back in and end up becoming world champion again. And I like the story. I like the comeback story of a Cinderella Man, but there are some really, really good teaching points in there about integrity and doing the right thing. And to me, that's just really, really important is doing the right thing. And so that's why I probably love that so much. But there's movies I like to just get entertained. I like the Toy Story movies too, because I'm entertained by them.
Entertained.
Is
Yeah.
there a point to it all? You got a friend in me, maybe. I don't know. It's just, people who come from different worlds come together and become best of friends, I suppose. But
Sure.
I don't know. I like being entertained too. So
Sure.
Have you seen Cinderella Man?
I have seen that.
Okay.
It's a great movie.
Have you seen Toy Story and all that?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. We're like making this movie list and checking them off, and
there's just so many. I don't know that I
Yeah.
could ever pinpoint it and say, yeah, this is my
This is
one
the one.
favorite movie.
Sure.
But I certainly have that list up there, and somebody can come up with something else, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love that movie, and I like the Rocky movies, and of course the Star Wars and stuff like that.
Sure,
Marvel
sure.
movies, I like them all, but no, the ones that have some meaning, some justice. I like justice. That's probably what I like about The Patriot. Mel Gibson's in The Patriot. That's quite the movie. And I think, being kind of a history buff, and I like that, and I like that people get to see what our forefathers sacrificed for what we have today in this country. So, and I think The Patriot does a good job of that. And then you can even go into the Tom Hanks movie, Saving Private Ryan, things like that. You saw real sacrifices of what our people went before us. So,
and we were having this conversation at the gym the other day, and it was really profound to me because, our founding fathers are mildly under attack at this point. Like the origins of our country is not necessarily being celebrated as it once was, because there were some ethical things that, like for example, Christopher Columbus. I think we don't really do Columbus Day anymore, right? Or if at some point they change it to Indigenous Species Day.
Oh, well, I'm not sure about that. We still do Columbus Day where the banks are closed.
Sure.
Market's not. The stock market's open on Columbus Day, but the banks are all closed. Federal Reserve's closed.
So as history comes out with some of these historical figures, and it's like we are revealed to their morality and some of their ethical choices. And then sometimes we learn like history isn't so squeaky clean, But, and you'll have to correct me here, but it's like, World War II was started by
Hitler.
Right. A white man, ultimately. And then which white men were responsible for a large amount of slavery back in the day. But it was also white men that freed slaves and stood up for slaves in a way, And so there's this two-sided history where you want to take it away from
sure,
there?
I'll take it. So I think, and I got to give credit, I think it was Steven Crowder that I heard talk about this first, and it may have been someone else, but it was in that sphere of people. And he was talking about how, for as much as people want to, say that European descendant men are the worst thing that's ever happened to America and are evil, he brought out the point that despite all of the things that were wrong when they came over and things they did that were immoral, the most amount of good has been done in the least amount of time in American society. That in the last 400, well, it's less than that since we've been, chartered as a nation, but I think there have been Europeans for about 400 years in America. And in that time, freed the slaves, gave women, right and a voice and an ability to do things that they hadn't been able to do before. And just a lot of those moral issues that the world faced. While some may have been propagated by, European white Caucasian men, they were also, many of them, dealt with by the same. So to make this image of every white man is evil is not really, it doesn't stick, because they also are the ones that did the good
It's not the
of
full
undoing
story.
the morals.
Well,
moral
they
thing.
are, but people who don't know world history miss out on the fact that, like, you take the evils of slavery and how horrible it is, but that's been going on
Since the beginning.
Yeah, we go back into our Bible times in Genesis, and there were servants and slaves, and even Jesus talked about them, and there are slaves in Asia, there are slaves in Africa. People, have you ever heard of the Barbary pirates? The Barbary pirates were in the Libya, northern Africa area, and they would actually go and capture merchant ships from the Netherlands area and even the United States, and they would either hold the ships for ransom or enslave the sailors. And it was people of color enslaving white people. So I don't know if people can be an ostrich and bury their head in the sand and act like it doesn't exist, but it did. And to your point, I think man has has come around and saying, yeah, this is not good, and we don't need to live this way. And we've abolished slavery. So that was good.
Yeah. Just a lot of good things I think have been done, and it's not like all progress is bad. There's good, but not all progress is good either. And I suppose that's probably a pretty deep conversation if we wanted to go there. But there is progress that's beneficial, but then there is the throwing out of good things in the name of progress, and that's not good at all.
Yeah.
So
right.
striking that balance is a difficult thing to do for people, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
Is there a historical figure that sticks out to you as like do you have a hero is maybe the wrong word, but just someone that is admirable to you?
Well, of course, all of our, most of our founding fathers, I suppose, are still there just for what they did and what they put together. What had never really been tried before. I mean, yeah, maybe in smaller scales, but to the scale that the United States is coming around. But you can't deny Abe Lincoln as a hero. And I love economics. It's just kind of hard to believe that I just have this love for economics. So, and economics works best when there's freedom. So I'd say anybody who promotes freedom, Jesus.
Yeah.
We are free indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway.
So on the topic of your career, would you call it when you say you love economics, like is it a passion?
Yeah, it's funny because I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't like what they do. I remember when I was a teacher and I would be around people who were teaching and they're in their 40s and they hated teaching school, but they felt trapped. They didn't think that they could leave education and do another job. And when I left, for those you don't know, I taught high school economics and government, sociology, a couple of other classes back in the 80s when I first got out of college. And when I left, I had a couple guys that I coached with that were envious of me. And they were in their 40s. Maybe one guy was in his 50s. And they looked at me and they go, boy, I wish I had the guts to do what you were doing when I was 29 years old.
To leave teaching.
To leave teaching.
Because that was your first job.
That was my first job.
You went to college to be in education.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Roundabout. I started in business, ended up in education, ended up back in business. So, and I enjoyed teaching, but I can see where it does wear on you after a while. And, I had heard people tell me that if you're going to teach, switch teaching assignments every 5 or 6 years. Go to a different school, go to a different class, try to do something to keep yourself fresh. I may have done that. I was studying to get my master's in administration, so who knows, maybe I'd be a principal or superintendent now if I stayed in it. But long story short, the way I kind of judge how I am in a gifted area is that I don't complain about Mondays and I don't look forward to Fridays. I think that's a pretty good sign that you like what you do.
Sure.
Where you don't dread Mondays and you don't look forward to Fridays.
Yeah.
And it's not like I don't like my weekends.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like having time off and whatnot, but I love going to work. I love getting up and going to work every day.
And there's this idea, and there's a guy out there named Gary Vee, and he has this motto. He's very like hustle guy. So if you have your 9-to-5 job, like do it. But then on the side, do what you're really passionate about and make money on that, doing what you're passionate about until that passion can become your mainstream income. Mm-hmm. And so I see you, and you fell into this teaching job, but you recognized it maybe wasn't your calling or passion in life. And then you found a way to exit that. And now you've fallen into like the job you have and the way you have set up right now. It allows you to live the life you want to live. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, that is a true statement. But what's interesting is that I believe that everybody has a gifting, and you look at Romans chapter 7, they talk about there's not chapter 7, but in Romans there's 7 gifts that they talk about. And I believe my gift is teaching. And I see it with my clients when I'm sitting at my desk and we're talking about money and investing, and I am always in the teaching mode, always. And the thing about this teacher is sometimes we got to watch it because we get long-winded. We got to share with everybody everything that we know, and you just got to be aware of that. And sometimes I'm not, but
So this career, this job allows you to operate in your gifting, in your motivational
I
gifting.
think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Right
Yeah.
on. So that gives you something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think that's something underutilized, underknown by people in general. I mean, we've talked about this.
Yep.
Lindsay knows. We've done this at Bible study where we
Yeah.
dive in and try to find what your gifting is.
Yeah.
And
Would you say you're a teacher? You got a teaching gift? Because boy, you knock it out of the park when you're there, and and Isaac, I marvel at your ability to preach at. How old are you? 25.
25 now. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, those are pretty good sermons. There's 50-year-olds that would I wish I could preach like that.
Well,
So
glory to God.
Yeah, there you go.
It is
And
his
see,
gift
there you go.
working in me.
There you go. It's all about the gifts, and people go, "Wow, you're such a great financial planner. I always, feel better when I come in and talk to you," and blah blah blah. But yeah, I got to say the same thing. It is, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, it's talent on loan from God.
Yeah.
People used to get so mad at him when they say that, and I'm like, wow, that is one of the most humble things anybody can say. That talent is not of yourself. A talent is a God-given gift.
that's literally what you say every time. If I ever say good job after a sermon, you're just like, oh, it's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I'm just the vessel. I'm just
It
the
is.
instrument. Yeah.
Well, isn't it? No matter what we do, isn't that what we do? Whether me as a father to you, that gift is, if I'm a good father, it's not because I'm a good father, it's because of God.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a good husband to your mother, it's not because I'm such a swell guy and a great husband. It's gifting from God. It's what God has put inside us.
Sure.
So
Yeah. That's deep Christianity, deep identity talk right there. That's not,
Well, it doesn't
normal
have to be that deep.
Well, you're right. It should be more.
It's a weighty
Attainable.
thing, but it
There
can
you
be
go.
it
Yeah.
can be simple.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just talking about it like this.
Well, I
Yeah.
hope anybody's out here listening to it go, well, duh. Doesn't everybody know that?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I'm a teacher or not. You have said one time that you think I am. When I take this little quiz, generally teacher is high. I feel like I'm another area, but just because I have to work to get into that study mode, that teaching mode. Like I have to really set myself up for that. I need hours uninterrupted with all my resources where I can really dive into the research to learn what I know I need to know, sort of a thing. But
Well, I've seen you in operation enough when you're talking about your craft and you're passionate about it, but I also watch how you think on your feet, which is always pretty amazing. I still remember you were talking about Rotary, you were speaking at Rotary a couple of years ago, and one of the guys asked, my wife says you can eat too much fruit. Can you eat too much fruit? And you gave the scientific answer of how a person can eat too much fruit, how your body metabolizes fruit and what it does. And I'm like, wow, just cool. Anyway.
well, by golly, hey, this is not supposed to be a bolster me session right here, but thanks. I mean, it's
I think it goes back to what's inside of you, though, because you can't always go and take time to study up the questions that you might get, or the points that people want to discuss about health with you. You've got that in you. I'm sure some of that has informationally. I'm sure a lot of it's been learned over time, but that studying it out has deposited it within you. Where now, I mean, I'm not saying you don't. I'm sure you still study things out, but you've got this foundation. To go back to that once again, you've got that solid foundation of health in you where you can just draw upon that. I mean, I was just talking to someone the other day about outlines and notes, and I mean, the way I've got notes. I mean, I've just got a couple words on a notepad, but it's like when you've got it in you, you don't need it all spelled out. You just need, that reminds me, this is something I wanted to talk about.
Right.
And so I think you've got that with health.
Sure.
I know you have that with the financial planning aspect, because sitting in your office talking with you the other day, it'd be like, here's a question. And I mean, you referenced an equation, and I think that was the only thing you looked up. Everything else was just, here it is.
yeah.
Well, it I don't know. When you do it day in and day out, I guess it's like riding the bicycle. It's a piece of cake. So, but
So I have two things, and one I kind of want confirmation on before I ask you the real question here. Okay, so my wife is a big fan of the show Downton Abbey. You've seen Downton Abbey?
yes.
Yes. Okay, you're willing to. I'm going to just go ahead and say this. I like Downton Abbey. I'm a fan now. Okay, you haven't seen it.
No.
whatever. Okay.
I'm into Downton Abbey,
Okay.
but I'll be honest with you. The reason why I watch it is because my wife Chris wanted to watch it, and
Sure.
I wanted to hang with her.
Same.
So that's why
Same.
I watch it, and I got hooked.
Agreed. I've seen it multiple times now. Okay. So there's a light reference. Go ahead and dig into it. Should be on Amazon Prime. Anyway, it goes through, what I like about it is it's historical, set in the 20s, really the 1910s and the 1920s. It spans that time frame. And it's in a big house where there is royalty. It's the Earl of Grantham, okay? And then there's the downstairs, the servants. And they go back and forth on the 2 story modes. And the biggest thing that I recently, as we've been talking more about money, is that money does not equate to happiness. And I think this is an age-old adage, right? Like, you can't buy happiness. True?
Correct.
Is there part of you that's like, well, I'd sure like to try, because if you gave me $10 million, we could have some fun?
Yeah. No, see, money is, to me, is neutral. It's neither moral or immoral. It's amoral. But money takes on the character of the person holding it. You know, you take a brick, you take a pile of bricks. To the carpenter, a pile of bricks can be made into something beautiful. To a rioter, a pile of bricks is a weapon. The pile of bricks takes on the character of the person holding it.
Sure.
Money is the same way.
Sure.
People can mishandle money.
Sure.
And God talks about it. God talks about money a lot in the Bible. And that's the thing that people have to remember, is that, you know, if you've been given money, you are required to be a good steward of it. Because again, it's like any other thing. It's a gift, and it is really not yours.
And I think that's just really important to define right there, because we're going to talk about money and how to increase your money and how to set yourself up for, especially later in life, so you have something to fall back on. But this in no way, shape, or form is meant to give you a false sense of security. Like,
No.
there are other aspects of life and identity that you really need to
I would agree.
go into.
I would agree.
And that's one of my observations. What I mean by bringing up Downton Abbey is the upstairs class, the higher class, and the downstairs class. Like, the biggest difference is status and money, but happiness eludes both of them. Contentment eludes both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to find that from a different source.
That's right. That's right.
It's good. I agree.
So then, if you let me just keep spieling here, is I listened to another podcast, the Tim Ferriss show. He calls himself the human guinea pig. A lot of respect for him. He had Michael Phelps on, and he made a statement about Michael Phelps' body. Him and another swimmer from Australia who has like a large amount of gold medals. So very, very, very successful swimmers. So he made a statement about how, you know, high school, varsity, you have a wide variety of body types in swimming specifically. And then you go up a level to professional or college, and then the body type narrows. Is the really good swimmers generally fall into this body type, this pattern, right? And then you get to the Olympics or the really high level athletes, and it's generally they all look the same with some variation. I mean, they're not mirror copies of each other. Okay, so that was the principle. And Michael Phelps, I mean, they both kind of agreed. Do you see a similar pattern with, I mean, you work with a wide variety of people with wealth. Like, you work with people way more wealthy than me. I'm kind of starting out with my, you know, financial journey and setting up Roth IRAs and things like that. The people who have more wealth, do they have similar habits?
I'd say overall, yes, they do.
Okay.
They do. Especially when you get to the super wealthy, you will find that there are some consistencies between them all. Their thought patterns, the way they think, are all the same.
I'm extremely interested in that. And if you have any insight into like what one or two of those may be, I don't know if there's secrets to it, but.
Oh, I don't know that they are. And it might be a whole nother podcast. You'll have to
Sure.
invite me back. Hey.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, we can talk on that, but they do. The one thing that people who have money have learned to do is live within their means. I am convinced that you can take all the wealth in the United States and divvy it up equally among everybody. And I will guarantee you that inside of 1 year, you'll have rich people and you'll have poor people again. Mm-hmm. You'll have people on welfare, and you'll have people who will control the wealth again. Again, probably because of giftings and not giftings, and people who are using godly wisdom and people who
Sure.
are being fools.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be harsh, but there are a lot of foolish behaviors out there that can cost people a lot of money. So,
And the thing about unfiltered here too is, I want to define it well, is because unfiltered doesn't mean we have a green light to say anything we want. Like we're here to be ethical, moral, and find ways to shed wisdom on certain topics. Unfiltered to me is really about diving into you as a person and getting into the nitty gritty about why you do things, and not only how you do things and the fruit of that, but why you do them. And even at the core of why you do them is your identity and your core beliefs, right? And so here we are talking about wealth habits, but then what drives a person even to do those wealth habits, because
believe it or not, fear.
as a motivating factor for healthy habits.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think, when you talk to a retiree, what's their number one fear? Running out of money before they die.
Interesting. How
That is
interesting.
the number one thing. People have a fear of running out of money before they die. So then they have to either live with a child, live in the poorhouse, depend on the government, and that they don't want to do that. So when people have that fear, what they will end up doing is it makes them live within their means. I mean, probably almost to an extreme where they can't afford to do some things and they won't. I mean, I have clients that need to go out and buy some new shirts because they're threadbare, and they won't because they don't want to spend the money.
Sure.
And so that's almost kind of a bondage thing there, where they
Interesting.
won't give up the money, and they probably, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I would be curious to know would like to know how much money they actually give away to the church or to charity, if they ever will. But it's just, I don't know. I guess to answer your question, fear is somewhat of a motivating factor to get people to do
Interesting.
proper investing.
Fear is not always negative,
Must not be.
because
There's
here you have
healthy fear.
healthy fear. Yeah.
Trying to think what that would be. I don't know. That
mean,
might be
there's-
another conversation.
Sure.
So, I mean, walking down a dark alley in New York City where there's a lot of crime is, you shouldn't do that. And you don't do it because you're afraid, or you don't do that because you're just wise. I don't know. I don't know. I gotta think. I haven't thought about that one too much, but
That's kind of been a popular discussion over the last year, the balance of like fear and wisdom, because when like COVID began a year ago, that was one of the initial conversations is, people would say, well, I'm not afraid. But then other people are like, well, it's not that you're not afraid. You're just not wise, and is fear and wisdom. How do those two things interact? I think it comes down to really the drive. Is it a positive drive or is it a negative drive? Is it about avoiding the negative, or is it about pursuing something positive?
Well, and that's probably, you know what? That's probably the better way to look at it, I think, Isaac. It's that what you got to do to not run out of money before you die. So just do it.
Yeah.
But the way that the financial world defines it is that way. It's what's the number one thing that you have facing retirement? It's, I fear I'm going to run out of money. So I don't know. But yeah, I like to put that different spin on it, just the way you put it. It's your drive to do what you know is right.
right on.
So.
Well, and I think the other thing about that is if it's a wisdom thing, I think it's something you can get into earlier on, because otherwise it's like you may not feel like the pressure of the fear to do it until you're getting closer to the time where you're like running out of time.
Right.
And if it's about pursuing the right thing, then you can start a lot earlier if that's your motivator, rather than just avoiding the pain of the wrong thing.
Well, I know we talk about that a lot, starting off early in life and applying wisdom to your finances, so that when you get to be 65 or 67 in our cases now, where people are thinking about retiring and quitting work, that they're able to do that because they've been good stewards with their money. So
I want to pull this thing up on the screen, small screen first, and get into your image here that you've created. And I've coined it the first time you ever showed it to me, you called it like Tim's buckets of money, and that
That's what it's known by.
Tim's
to
buckets of
clients
money, yeah.
and some coworkers at the bank call it Tim's buckets of money.
And
But,
this was revelatory for me and convicting to start doing what I know I needed to do with my money, because I have an income now and I have to decide how to use it. And
yeah. Well,
you've got it small screen right there.
It's hiding from me.
It's hiding. Well, so go ahead, Dad, and just kind of.
well, so everybody out there in podcast land can see this, I take it. So
Yes.
So
soon.
soon.
Very soon. It's just not.
Well, what I do when people come into my office and they want to invest, we have to determine what kind of an account you want it in, and when do you want to use the money. And so these three boxes at the top, taxable, tax deferred, and tax never, are three different types of an accounts. So
Tax never really jumps off the page to me. It's like tax never, because what are the two certain things in life?
death and taxes,
Right.
Until the Roth IRA came around.
Right.
So
This is fascinating to me. So yes,
Yeah.
please.
So the taxable account is like just any regular account. You have interest that you earn, or you earn dividends, or you buy something low and you sell it high. You're going to get a 1099 each year, and you have to declare that as income on your tax return and pay income tax on it. The next account over is a tax deferred account, and a tax deferred account, actually what you do here, this is like your 401k, your IRA, your SEP IRA, your 403b, any kind of a retirement plan, where when you put your money in, you actually get to deduct that from your income and not pay tax on it. And then the money gets dividends, gets interest, it grows on a tax deferred basis. When are taxes deferred to? Taxes are deferred to a later date. And that, when you pay taxes, is when you withdraw the money. So when you take money out, you have to pay tax on it at that point, at whatever the tax rates are then. The idea behind these tax deferred accounts is that when you are working, you're in a higher tax bracket. And then when you retire, you will be in a lower tax bracket. So you're saving income tax by putting this money away and not paying tax on it. Then when you retire, you're not making very much money and you're in a lower tax bracket, so you're paying a lower tax rate. So that's the idea of tax deferred. And then, of course, the tax never is you don't get the tax deduction. You put money into this type of an account, and you don't get the tax deduction, but that interest, those dividends, that growth, buy low, sell high, all that money grows tax. Well, some people say tax deferred. I say tax never. But there's two things you got to do to make sure you never have to pay tax on it. One, you have to have the account for at least 5 years. And two, you have to be 59 and a half before you withdraw the money. And if you can do those two things, have it for 5 years and be 59 and a half before you withdraw that money comes out of the Roth IRA. And that's what it's called, the Roth IRA, tax-free, tax never. It's my favorite. I just love saying it.
Tax never.
Tax never.
Because it's that tax deferred, the middle box there. It's a short term, or it's an immediate gain because you're paying less tax on a given year.
You get a tax deduction, correct. Yep.
But then that money you funneled away and put it into account, it grew exponentially.
Yep.
So now what's the maximum income on a tax deferred account, like a 401k for a year?
You mean the maximum amount you can put into a 401k?
Yeah.
It depends on how old you are. If you are over 50, it's $26,000 a year. If you're under 50, it's $19,500, I believe. Yeah, $19,500. But there's other things. There's profit sharing plans. There's employer matches. And technically, for year 2021, if you really have that kind of income, you can sock away $63,500 into a 401k plan with a profit sharing.
So a sidebar is you actually recommend having both. Do you not? Having a...
Well... Yeah, I guess I do.
As in a 401k or an IRA, and then having also a Roth IRA.
It's not a one-size-fits-all type thing.
Right.
So it really kind of depends. If you're in the top tax bracket, if your income's so high, you're paying 37% tax, federal income tax, plus you pay an 8.9% in the state of Iowa. I mean, add those two numbers together, 9 plus 37, that's near 46% income tax. And we haven't even touched Social Security tax that you have to pay on a certain portion of your income as well. So if you're making that much money, you may want the tax deferred and try to bring some of that 37% plus the state income down a little bit. So yeah, it's certainly not a one size fits all. But what I do know is when people get to that retirement age and they're in their upper 60s or in their in their 70s, and they want to all of a sudden spend a lot of money, taxes is a big issue.
Because now you're taxed on the growth.
Yeah.
That money that you set aside earlier to lower your tax bracket possibly and save money.
So if you don't have anything in the Roth IRA, the tax never, and all your money is in that tax deferred account, every time you spend money, you got to pay income taxes. And then what people don't realize is that there's a domino effect. Depending on how much other money that you make in retirement, then all of a sudden maybe your Social Security becomes taxable. Or if you make so much money, you have to pay higher Medicare premiums than maybe your next door neighbor. Yeah, I tell you, when people say the rich don't pay their fair share, you don't say that around me, because you better know what you're talking. When you say that, it tells me you don't know what you're talking about, because people with high incomes are paying a lot of money in taxes.
Which is why we hear so many stories about them trying to get around these laws that are requiring them to pay taxes.
Well, that's what you always hear politicians say, but nobody ever gives me an example. Yeah. I'm like, how do they do that? It's like, well, maybe they put their money in an annuity. Okay, that's a whole different concept there. Or maybe they invest their money offshore. I suppose that's a way they can get around it too. But I don't know how that stuff works. That one's above my pay grade. So.
Not gonna happen. Well, we'll share this in an image, probably in the comments, or we'll get it available. Somehow. We're not going to be able to put it onto the screen right now for you to reference, but if you're listening at this point, you should be able to find this document in a link somewhere, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah,
we can share it for sure. So you can kind of have a loose reference to draw from, because you also have a copy of this where you draw arrows and you talk about the money flow from one arena to a next.
Yeah.
So if you want that version, then you're going to have to plan with Tim.
Yeah, you can give me a holler, or come to one of my seminars once in a while. When I do that, I will go over this information, because what's interesting is I found myself drawing this thing so many times with clients come in. I finally decided to draw it once and copy it over and over again, so that I don't have to draw it every time I have a new customer that comes in or a new client that comes in and wants to learn this. So,
well, did you have a takeaway, Isaac?
Well, I think it's all so beneficial in the conversation about planning out tax deferred and the ways you can benefit today from investing, and then obviously the benefits that come later down the road from investment. I think those are all valuable, and if you don't know about them, you should go see Tim. But I was kind of thinking about different, like, people at different stages of life, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago with, like, the motivation to do this, because I'm 25, and while I understand the value of it, I can say honestly, putting money into an account that I'm not going to get to touch for 40 years is not always the most appealing thought.
Oh my goodness, that is really hard for people in their 20s to do. But I'll just tell you right now, that 40 years goes by really fast. And so, but here's something that's interesting about putting money away young, is that you have an asset where you're richer than I am, and that's called time. You have more time. I'm older than you. I was going to tell you how old I was, but
you don't have to do that.
I won't. So, and Albert Einstein, you all heard of him. He's a pretty smart guy. He said the compounding of interest, or the time value of money, is the eighth wonder of the world. Because when you put your investment in and you earn interest, and then you earn interest upon interest, and interest upon interest upon interest, or dividends upon dividends, it's the compounding effect. And that just will blow you away, especially when you start doing the numbers, when you write down and say, okay, I'm going to put $1,000 in and I'm going to make 8% a year in the market. And then you total what that's going to be in 40 years. And that $1,000 is all you put in at the principal. Everything else is growth. It's the compounding effect. Yeah. So Albert Einstein, the compounding of interest, or the time value of money, is the eighth wonder of the world. Brilliant.
So huge.
Yeah. But it's interesting is that when I do all of this, so much of it centers around taxation. And I tell people all the time, and so there's a new law that went into effect in January 1st, 2020, called the Secure Act. And so a person could have a 401k plan or an IRA, and maybe by the time at the end of their life, it is worth $2 million. And so you always have a beneficiary on these. So on my accounts, I named my wife as beneficiary. On her account, she names me as beneficiary. And then we have you kids named as contingent beneficiaries or secondary, so that when we're both gone, you guys get it. Well, the law that went into effect on January 1st, 2020 says that you have to have those inherited IRAs withdrawn within 10 years of the date of death of the parent. Now, this tax deferred bucket, you don't just because you inherit doesn't mean you don't have to pay taxes. That goes along with it. So when you inherit an IRA as a child, you have to pay income tax when you pull that out. Now think about this. Think about if somebody did a really, really good job of investing and they do have, let's say they have a $3 million IRA and they have 3 kids and each kid gets $1 million inherited IRA. They have to have that $1 million out within 10 years of the date of death. And they have to pay income tax on it. So now all of a sudden, what I tell people is that you have 3 kids, and in my case, Aaron, Andrea, Philip, and then there's going to be a 4th, and his name is Sam. Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam.
He's taking his cut.
He's taking his cut. And if if the kids are successful and have good paying jobs, and then maybe they're already in the 22, 24, the 32% tax bracket, and then now all of a sudden they inherit this thing and they have to pay income tax, they're maybe all of a sudden in the 37% bracket. And that's federal. And then you tack on another 8.9% state, and there you go. Yeah.
Uncle Sam walks away with half.
With half, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like the Roth IRA so much, because the Roth IRA, when you inherit the Roth IRA, it is still tax-free to you. It takes on that character. That character does not change from the person who owned the account to the beneficiary of the account.
Which means you're keeping more of that interest earned money.
Yep.
Yeah, the money that compounded over the years, you get to keep instead of paying an exponential growth tax on that.
In taxes, correct.
Because as the money you get exponentially grows and compounds, then that means the tax is compounding as well.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a scary thought.
Can you understand why I like the Roth IRA so well
Yeah.
and why it's my
Yeah.
favorite?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
I can totally see the value of that. Do you have any thoughts or words of wisdom about shifting a person's thinking from like a 25-year-old who just wants to spend the paycheck to long-term investment, like legacy? A lot of this, I mean, it's about end of life, like, spending it before you're gone or within these time constraints that are given. How do you have any thoughts about shifting that thought?
Well, it's really, again, it's a personality trait that a lot of people have. It's a thing. It's called delayed gratification. I knew a young kid one time who got his birthday presents about 10 days before his birthday. And they sat there on the buffet for days before his birthday, wrapped up from his grandparents were gone, and so they sent him early, and they were sitting on this table. And this young man had 2 older sisters. Do you know this story?
I've heard this before, I think.
The young man I'm talking about is Philip. So he has all these presents from from Chris's mom and dad.
I can't wait to have Bruce Wengler on so we can talk about your childhood too. Maybe the 4 of us will do a podcast sometime.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Danger.
Love Pastor
danger.
That would be good. So these presents were sitting on this on the buffet, and it was probably a couple days before Philip's birthday, and it had been sitting there for several days already, and it was driving the girls nuts. And so Philip's older sisters, Aaron and Andrea, came running in and said, "Mom and Dad, do you care if Philip opens up Grandpa and Grandma's birthday presents early?" And we said, "Sure, if he wants to do it, he can do it. So go ask him." So they went running in the room. "Philip, Mom and Dad said you could open up the presents early if you want." And you know what he says? "No, I think I'll wait till my birthday."
Whoa.
That is amazing. So here's the deal. This was done years ago, I think 1950s, 1960s. It's the marshmallow thing. So they had these group of kindergartners, and they give each one of these kids a marshmallow. And they say, you could eat it now, but if you wait for 30 minutes, you'll get a second one. Half the kids ate the first marshmallow right away. Half the kids set it aside, said, "Yeah, I'll wait for 30 minutes to get a second one." They delayed their gratification. When they did that test, they looked at those kids and they said, "We can predict which one of these kids will have money when they're later in life, and which kids will be broke."
Wow.
Because of the ability to delay gratification. And I think that's so true. People, 1, living within their means, but 2, just saying, "You know what, I cannot afford that thing, so why should I go in debt to buy a boat or a motorcycle or a sports car, or a bigger house to keep up with the Joneses, And so if they're able to delay gratification, I'll guarantee you, they will have money when they're old because they'll be good savers.
I have a notebook that it stays here, and I'm up to 10, and I try to put like just life lessons that I've learned across the years, just these axioms, very short statements that are true always throughout time, no matter what, no matter when, no matter who. And number one, for whatever reason, is delay instant gratification. Because it seems like there's story after story after story, and you don't have to look far into history, that when you move too quickly into that gratification and I want this now, so I'm going to do this, there's like a lot of detriment that can come when you indulge before due time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And money habits just seems to be that way, is there's exponential benefit when you're able to funnel that money
right
downstream into some place that will compound for you, so then you can have it later. It's just like a security blanket.
Yeah, it really is. And it just, if people can live by that principle. And by the way, Aaron and Andrea, I hope you watch this, but I'm not implying at all that you don't have the ability to delay gratification. I really do believe you do. And I can honestly say I'm really proud of all three of my kids and their spouses and the way they handle money. I think you all do a fantastic job. So from what they share with me anyway. So.
Right. I don't share with you my instant gratification moments, when I buy things.
You do.
Well, you're right. I do. Recently.
Yeah, we don't need to go there, but
yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So
right
anyway, I spend a lot of time doing those things, and I spend a lot of time talking with people about taxes and about what they should be doing. But there was a study that was done several years ago, and they would ask people who are at least 100 years old how much money that you should save out of your income, and virtually every single person said at least 10%. At least 10%. These are all centurions, and I've had a lot of people over 100 years old that I've worked with in my lifetime, and they're pretty amazing people, and their advice is pretty sagey, pretty wise. So,
what is a step someone could take today if they hear this and they start thinking about the value of the long game with money?
Well, I can get somewhat spiritual on you here too, and don't despise small beginnings. People always think, I need to have thousands of dollars to go invest. No, you don't. You can start with $25 a month, and I'm saying do that. Get it into a mutual fund, $25 a month. Have it come out of your checking account just like you would your light bill. But start young and start small, and you'll realize, hey, you know what? I'm not even missing that $25. Maybe I can up it to 30 or 35 or 40 or even 50. And then the next thing is do it on a regular basis. It's the way I invest. It's a method of investing called dollar cost averaging. You can Google it and find all sorts of lessons on it. But I put money into my retirement account every 2 weeks like clockwork. I just never fail. My 10% or whatever my percentage is that I'm saving, it goes in every 2 weeks like clockwork. I don't pay attention whether the market is up or down and try to time it. It's payday. I put the money in. So start young.
What's that? What's the movie? Like, forget about it. What's that movie? Where it's like Italian mobsters. They always say that. Forget about it. Goodfellas or something like that.
I remember what the movie
De Niro.
TV show
De Niro,
is.
De Niro-esque show. Someone
Forget
probably out
about
there.
it.
Right. That's kind of when you say every 2 weeks automated.
Yeah.
You don't have to like push buttons to do it. That's kind of what goes through my mind. Just automate it and then forget about it. Just like set it up and then let it go.
I think that's the way you do it, and you don't despise small beginnings. Don't wait. And then the other thing is that people, they might be watching this and they're already 45 or 50 years old, and they might be feeling depressed because they haven't done anything. I'm like, don't let pride keep you from coming in and talking to me. It's like, I think people, they haven't done a good job and they feel embarrassed, and then they come in at age 50 years old thinking, well, I haven't saved very much, and is it too late for me to start? And it's like, no, it's not too late to get started. Just do something. And so I tell people, drop your pride. I'm not going to laugh at you. I don't laugh at anybody. I just am thrilled that, people are coming in, even if they're 50 years old and just now finally figuring it out. And a lot of times, people are raising families and they don't have any extra money.
Yeah.
And I don't feel sorry there. I was there. I remember times where we didn't have money to invest because we were raising 3 kids, and that's just kind of the way it was. So But when the kids get out of school, a lot of times that's catch-up time. That's why the government, if you're over 50, gives you the ability to catch up. They call it the catch-up with the IRAs and 401ks, where they let people over 50 put more money in versus somebody under 50 because of that very reason.
That's good.
So, yeah.
You often, I don't know how much you want to get into this, but you talk about your childhood. And if I can just say what you said is you have told me that you didn't really understand until you were older about how poor the family was growing up to some extent.
Yeah, financially, I don't know that my mom and dad had a lot of money, but they never, ever let us know that. They did not, I don't know, I always, when I was 10 years old, I went and mowed a yard across town and got, worked 2 hours and a half for $2, and then I'd start walking beans at $2 an hour. I still remember that, $2. And the next year I got $2.10 an hour. Wow. Just unbelievable.
Big raise.
Yeah, it'd go snow, and my little brother and our friend down the street would go grab the shovels, and we would go knock on doors. Hey, can I have a job shoveling your snow? And, make a couple bucks that way. I was always hustling. I had a newspaper out. But I don't know. Mom and Dad, I think they taught us the value of the money, that was important. And I don't think they always had a lot of money, but they never let us know. And I didn't. I was just too dumb to know that we didn't have a lot of money. I didn't ask for a whole lot. I didn't say, oh, why can't I have those new Nike shoes that are out? I still remember when Nike came out. That was a thing. But
you being one of 6 kids, big family, fighting for food.
Yeah, I never fought. I was a finicky eater, so I just let you want to have that chicken gizzard, you go knock yourself out. So,
oh man.
Yeah, I'm not a chicken gizzard guy. But my little brother and my big brothers and dad, oh yeah, they'd be all over that. And I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in that. But, that was one thing in family time. We always sat down, all 8 of us, every night, sat down together on the table and had a meal. Mom always, she was the chief cook. And the kids always helped with cleanup and dishes and stuff like that. I still remember even when I was little, having to help do that with our sister. But we had made a sport out of it. We had fun. I remember having fun with my siblings doing stuff like that. So.
It reminds me of something my dad told me when I remember asking him one time when I got the concept of wealth and not wealth, in a financial aspect. And I asked him one time, Dad, are we rich or not so much, or where are we at in that whole thing? And I remember he told me, well, Isaac, he said, we're not financially rich, but there are a lot of other things that we're rich in. And this conversation reminds me of something we said early on, which is that money doesn't buy happiness, and how, referencing Downton Abbey, it really isn't a matter of how much you've got in finances. It's about the other stuff you've got or lack.
Yeah.
Because I think there are a lot of people who grew up with less means, but maybe more fulfilled in some ways.
Oh, we had wonderful. I mean, of course, we were fortunate to have both sets of grandparents that lived right there. And, my mom's side grandparents had the farm, and, we went out there a lot. And boy, talk about a wonderful time. We had our BB guns, and boy, me and my brothers, as soon as we'd get there, we'd grab our BB guns. Hey, Grandpa and Grandma, and bam, off we were out to the hayloft and running around the farm. And boy, those were some really good times. And then we didn't take big exotic vacations. We went camping. There was a state park 2 miles out of town. We went there all the time, and we'd camp and fish, and boy, we just had a good time. We'd played the games that we played out there. So yeah, we were rich. We were a rich family.
Yeah.
So maybe not so much financially, but we were rich. So
I think that's an awesome distinction to make, that status and financial status. I mean, your status, your hierarchy, upper class, blue class, white collar, blue collar, all that sort of stuff. And then that and your money status really doesn't matter.
Didn't matter.
At the end of the day, you ain't taking it with you.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too is that even when people get to the retirement age, I'll have people who will come in and they'll have an okay portfolio, and I'll say, well, how much do you need to take out of this every month? No, we'll be just fine with Social Security, and we'll work odd jobs here and there, and then maybe say, oh, we can get by with $500. And then the next guy will come in and go, well, how much you need every month out of your retirement plan? $10,000. That actually happened one time. I started laughing, and then And then I got my paper out and got my pen, and I said, "Okay, sir, how much money do you want every month?" And he leans forward and goes, $10,000. Oh, you weren't kidding. You were serious. So it just, like I said, it's different for everybody.
For sure. And I think I'm extremely, I guess, passionate, or I have this drive to, I don't even know how to say this, is just invest money in your future, both financially and in your health. Because being a chiropractor, I've just seen too many instances where these things are neglected, and then it comes back to bite you in the butt later. And I don't want people to have to go through things that weren't necessary to go through, because there's wisdom out there that's attainable and useful now. And if it's there, we should use it. And that's a lot of what this podcast is about, is revealing tactics to meet life's demands, because stress is not avoidable in life. You would agree?
Right.
It's going to happen. And so to be able to bolster your health and your financial status so that you can just purely help yourself and your family, not even yourself, but like be able to help other people with being a healthy person. So you're the one who can go and help out someone who is having an issue at the time, or being able to lend or loan somebody money and not even need it in return. To be that type of person, I just, not that means you're a good person if you can do those things. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Well, it certainly helps when you're not stingy, when you can help somebody who might not be as fortunate as you financially. I how do I say this without sounding like I'm bragging, but I like to tip really well when I go to places.
Sure.
So
Yep.
I just, there's somebody that's working hard, doing the job, and that's the way our society is. That's how they survive, is tips. And, I guess maybe I was a waiter in my life, so I know what it's like to, really give somebody good service and get a stingy tip. And so, just that thing. But it's also just being aware and blessing someone when you have the means to bless them. So that's a wonderful thing to do. Wonderful thing to be able to do that. And again, I think that goes back to stewardship.
Got to be a good steward now in order to be capable of giving a blessing later.
Well, remember, money takes on the character of the person holding it.
I was just thinking about how one way I look at money is as a tool to do things. And so it's, in talking about wanting to have the means to do these things or to give or to whatever you want to say, I look at it that way. Like I'm acquiring a tool to do a work that'll be good.
Yeah.
If I don't have the air compressor, I can't air my tires up at home. I can't help someone else air theirs. If I don't have the tow rope, I can't pull you out of the ditch. I mean, it's about having tools to do the work we're supposed to do.
Help people out.
Yeah.
But I do think too, it goes back to, you said something earlier, Tim, that made me think this, but the goods belong to the master. And that's something I wrote down in my Bible, where Jesus taught the parable of the stewards with the talents. Yeah. And I thought the goods belong to the master, and one day they're going to answer for how they used the goods.
Yeah.
And so keeping that perspective too, I mean, and that's coming from a Christian belief system and worldview, but I don't look at it like it's really even mine. I'll share this testimony, I guess. My grandma shared it with me, and so it's hers, but she said one time that the Lord, like she was studying about money in the Bible and about provision, and she got this like vision that there was just a pile of gold in heaven, and God was funneling through her whatever he needed to get out to other people. And it's like there's no lack of supply, but
that's right.
I could be the bottleneck if I refuse to give, or I refuse to be a good steward with what I've got. Then I'm going to limit the supply, because it's really not mine now, and where it's going isn't supposed to end with me. So I just look at it like I'm flowing in it. I'm giving it. I'm using it. I'm doing what it's meant to be done.
Well, I tell you, it's about the attitude. I heard a good teaching here just recently about the three stewards, or the money, and two of them did what they're supposed to do, and one of them didn't. And he had a bad attitude. It was his attitude that caused him. I mean, the master came back, and what did he call him? Lazy and wicked?
Yeah.
Evil?
Sluggard.
Yeah. And it was an attitude issue that this guy had. I mean, because he he would have been fine if he wouldn't invested. I think if he wouldn't invested and lost it, the master would have been fine with it. But the fact that the guy hid it and buried it really ticked the master off, because this guy had that stinky attitude. So anyway.
And you guys are really helping finish the thought that I was trying to start earlier, is that, I mean, wealth and health is not necessarily about me or about you specifically. It's about, being part of a community and a brotherhood and a family, so that you can do your part and help others when the need comes, because that's the way life is. The need is going to come. Like, it's inherently bumpy. And so being prepared for the ride is always, like the old saying is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Right.
I mean, there are some simple ways and some simple tactics that we can all do right now, day to day, moment to moment, just to help prepare for the ride, the bumpy ride.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why even my job, I'm a certified financial planner. They didn't just throw that word flippantly in there because it rhymed or sounded good. It doesn't rhyme, people, but
Yeah.
So do you, now money is very principled in a way, just like the way money flows and the principles of money. Do you think energy, like personal energy, is the same as money? Do you manage your energy like you do money, or is that a totally different set of principles?
I don't know. Do I come across as a high energy person to you? Because I don't always think I do. I know some people say, "Oh, Heisterkamp, he's high strung," but I don't know. Do I manage my energy like I manage my money? Maybe more at one time I did. Boy, you kind of caught me off guard with that question. How about you? What do you do? What do you think?
I'm trying to get better at that. As we talk about the four main areas that we dive into, resources is really what we're spending a lot of time on now, and that's time, energy, and money. Are three resources that you have to plan out how you're going to spend them. Time is the only non-renewable resource, which means money and energy are. But in the same way that you have to plan to use your money, I feel like you have to plan to use your energy. And
well, I agree, because I think that you could even probably use energy and talk about the three stewards. The one was lazy. He didn't use his energy to invest the master's money, and so and I think sometimes I think it gets hard when you've got so many things going on, and people are always go, "Oh, I want some downtime," and yet. The other day I had a friend who shared with me, Jocko, Marine, and
Navy SEAL.
Yeah, Navy SEAL, that's right. And he just says, just get up, get out of bed. You can take tomorrow off. And the point is when you get to tomorrow, I guess I'm not going to take it off now.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing it. And so that's kind of managing your energy to keep pushing forward. Get up, get out of bed, let's go. And so I think when people... a lot of times when you try to conserve or preserve or to keep something, you end up losing it.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to hold on to your energy, it probably makes you more of a sluggard.
Well, it's interesting because you think you have to spend energy in order to have it renewed, and so every second of every day, energy is going out of you in a way. And so now you get to choose what you're going to do with that energy. Yeah. So at some point you have to plan out or think about what's the most valuable thing for you in order to spend your energy on. You have to think about what are you passionate about? What are the most important things to you? And then figure out how to pour energy in there and not just let it be a waste.
It's interesting because you bring this up, and right away my mind went into thinking about exercise and about doing stuff, about spending my energy that way or spending my energy towards my job. But your attitude, people talk about somebody coming in with a bad attitude and they just suck the air out of the room, and so that's
a good point.
That negative thing there too, just with a wicked, unhealthy attitude.
Yeah,
like the lazy servant.
For sure. Excellent point. Is your attitude? I think that's clear. Is there are certain attitudes that are good at replenishing energy, and there are others that suck it from you and others.
Right. I don't want to be that person.
No.
No. Don't want to go there.
Point. I really like something else about that was said is you have to spend energy to renew energy. And I think about the days where I do a lot and then I get home and I am ready to go to bed and I sleep hard, I sleep well, and then I get up the next day and I feel rested because
ready to go.
Yeah, but the days that I don't do anything, not that there's a lot of those days, but on those days, I usually don't sleep that great at night.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Yeah.
It's like like you said, trying to recoup it, it's almost like I'm making it harder to gain it. So.
Well, even Jesus slept in the
He
middle
did.
of a storm.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah. Which speaks to his attitude.
Yeah.
It speaks to the journey of being a Christ follower, is adopting that attitude.
Having that peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is going to multiply energy, I think, to other people around you.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you have peace, it's one less area that you have to spend energy trying to get calmed down. Because like in a chaos situation, you're giving energy just to like cope. And I do think that when you have
Right.
trust, faith, peace in someone greater than yourself, it brings an energy. I don't want to sound like weird saying that, but there is an energy that is available, or you don't spend as much, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
It's a strengthening effect.
For sure. That's what I tell people all the time at the office too, is like when stress comes, you don't have to avoid it. You just have to, your body has to handle it really well. And so a lot of times we talk about not letting stress go through the roof by your attitude or your thoughts and your emotions and things like that. It's just kind of put a ceiling on it, put a cap on it, find a way to just stay balanced. So you're not such a huge roller coaster, but just like smaller rises and falls. You preserve energy and you sustain this attitude, or rather it's the attitude that sustains the energy, so you can use it well and be a good steward of your energy, versus being so run down, so stressed out that now all you're putting out is negative energy. That's, yeah, dangerous trap.
Not cool.
Not cool.
That makes me think about efficiency. And like when you're driving a car, it's better to just keep it at like a steady level than it is to fire up, hit the brakes, fire up, hit the brakes, or even coast. Like just keeping it constant. Like you're gonna get better mile per gallon doing that. And I think when we are steady, our energy it'll go further. That supply of resource will take us further when we're just steady rather than the up, down, up, down.
Absolutely.
It's funny. I admire people who have that personality where they're just steady. They're just steady. I just admire people like that who are not the roller coaster. That's just, kind of crazy.
Do you think that's a learned thing, or is it nature?
It's probably nature. It's probably God given.
Sure.
I don't know, but I suppose it could be learned too.
Because I think about a lot of the movies that we referenced earlier, Gladiator, Patriot, Last Samurai. I mean, they are all steady figures in a very significant way, but they have access to this energy reserve that can send them when they need to be. I think like Gladiator in the Colosseum, like when the moment rose, he was prepared to initiate. And I believe, you've got to have a deep level understanding and be a good steward of your energy and of your mind and your attitude, so that you know when to unleash it.
I think you're right. It's just interesting. And just so many of the things we talk about, like money, the bricks, it just takes on the character of the person who's holding it.
As energy, the same thing.
Yeah. Just everything is.
Interesting.
So, and I think it can be and it doesn't mean that if you struggle with that you can't change, because I believe you can. I think a lot of this can still be learned.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Anyway,
but it just reflects the need or the desire to not just talk about how you do things, but talk about why you do them.
Right.
And then to even, when you're developing why you're doing things, you're really referencing your core belief on the inside, which influences why you do things, which influences how you do things. And I'm going to keep coming back to this as long as I live, it's because it's the identity statement, and it's who you say you are. It's what you believe about yourself. It's what you believe about life. That's what influences why you do what you do, and therefore how you do what you do. So it's, as we're talking about these money habits and the Roth IRA and being a good steward of your energy, you got to know why you want to do that. You've got to know what it is about yourself, what it is you're passionate about, that you want to rewire in order to do in life.
Yeah. Good.
And I think with that, you have to know what is important and what to spend the resources toward, what to spend your energy or your time toward. While we were talking about that, I was just thinking about how many options we have today to spend our time, our energy, our money. I mean, it's like unlimited, basically. I mean, you could put your energy toward whatever cause or thought or subject matter you wanted to, and
Well,
boiling down.
it's increased a lot in my lifetime, just from when I was a kid to your ages to where I am now. So, is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about? I know we've been going here for
Hour 20.
an hour.
Yep.
Wow. You said that right at hour 20.
Boom.
That was cool.
Internal
Impressive.
Right.
clock.
Wild.
There's you tell a story. Is there anything else on the Tim's buckets of money to reference there?
No, I think that's probably good. It just gives people something to think about.
Yeah.
So.
You tell a story about, I mean, your dad, my grandpa, about how at the end of the day, after he's worked, been a steward with his energy and his time, he would be in the chair, he'd be in the recliner in the corner, and if you boys were being a little rowdy, when you heard the recliner go down,
Oh yeah.
that's when you guys all shaped up at that point.
If he told us to go to bed and we were messing around and we wouldn't go to bed, all they had to do was put the recliner down and his feet touched that hardwood floor. And we had a dog named Missy, and she usually beat us up the stairs because when she heard the, it was, we hightailed it upstairs. Then it's not like we got whooped or anything like that. It was just like, it's time to go to bed, and you dinked around and boom, there we went. So I don't know, just a level of respect there. We didn't get away with lipping off to mom or dad. So
Was he the one that coined the if you want the last word?
it's yes, sir.
Was that him?
Yeah, he said, I don't know if he came up with it, but he would tell us that if we were if you're arguing or something and he'd tell you something, he goes, and if you try to rebuttal, if you want the last word, is yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You told me that once in a serious fashion.
Did I tell it to you when you were a kid?
Yeah. You had told me the story, and then you used it on me. And I was like, oh, I messed up big.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember what it was. I must have just been a little out of line and complaining about something. And
Giving some lip.
yeah.
No, my dad was full of one-liners. Some of them were funny. But
I mean, before we kind of wrap it up here, the one thing I'm also curious about is the difference in parenting between how your parents parented you, how you parented our generation, and then how you see your kids parenting your grandchildren. Is there there's a span of several years there.
yeah.
Times have changed.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of psychobabble books that came out and said you can't do this and you can do that and whatnot. If you did something stupid, you were told that you got called a knucklehead or a knothead, and it didn't damage my psyche. It didn't make me.
It didn't.
No, it did not. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I agree, Dad. That was kind of a knothead move. Sorry, I guess.
Was there a core belief?
But I don't think I ever called you a knothead or a knucklehead in growing up.
I don't think you did.
No, never did.
No.
And so I don't know. And then, we were given chores to do, and I don't know. I don't think we gave you enough chores. I don't think did I ever really make you mow the lawn or shovel the walk? And when I grew up, Dad never mowed the lawn. It was me and my three brothers' job to mow the lawn, pick up sticks. And there was a time when it was just me and my little brother that were home. So I was 16 and he was 14, and Dad was on the road a lot. I took a lot of pride when Dad would tell me, hey, by the time I get home this weekend, I want this and this and this done. And I took a lot of pride in pleasing him and doing a good job and doing that. And then even when I did high school jobs, I tell you, if you can do it perfect, then that's the way it got done. And it got me promoted. I mean, I remember I went into the work as a happy chef, and I went in as a dishwasher, and within 2 weeks I was cooking because I worked. Yeah. I worked hard, and I didn't do it halfway. I made sure I did it all the way. And I don't know, then I have to give Mom and Dad credit that they put that work ethic in me. So I don't know, there's probably, there's times I suppose I was afraid that I and your mom did not put those work ethics in you and your sisters, but now that I see you all, you got it.
Well, yeah, you did. You left it up. You did leave some choice up to me, because if you left and the driveway wasn't cleared when you got home, there was no consequence necessarily, but there was a why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
Like, you had the potential to do it, kind of like what you're saying. If you can do it perfect, if you had the potential to do it, then that's the way it was done. I mean, why did you spend your time sitting on the couch watching a television show instead of doing the productive thing?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to feel that look from you, because
That's why I was with my dad.
yeah, I didn't want to feel that at all. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not like you didn't chastise me or call me names, but there was a thing that I'm not wounded by this, by the way, but you would.
See?
I don't think I'm wounded by this anyway, but there's a way that you would kind of shift your attention off me in a way. So as where you did this thing and you felt the pride to satisfy your father, it's kind of like I didn't want to dissatisfy you.
Yeah.
And
you
I
don't want to disappoint your father.
And I knew if you came home and I hadn't done the thing, I was going to disappoint you. And rightly so. Why would you be proud of a sluggard of a son who sat on his butt on the couch the whole time, you know? And so there's just that fine line between a healthy disrespecting and then like a wounding thing. And that's the theme
Yeah.
of a book we're reading again. I'm going to reference it again. Wild at Heart, very influential, where how would you summarize
That book?
Yeah. And the wound part especially.
Yeah, like the calling out or like bestowing of an identity of masculinity upon a young man, and how there are times where the wound refers to that not happening. So a lack of calling out masculinity in a young man, or giving him that identity of being this man who can be independent and do the things that a man needs to do in life.
Right.
'Cause every boy is constantly crying out, subconsciously or consciously, is, do I have what it takes to be a man? And the father figure is the number one person who has the authority to either confirm and support that and say, I do believe in you, or shred that.
Emasculate him.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't think you did that to me.
I think I got it from my dad, and I hope that I did it. Just try to be the example.
Yeah.
Be the example and do the things that I'm supposed to do as a father. And then kids will pick up far more by watching than what you'll ever get by telling. So, I got up and went to work every day.
Yeah.
Did you ever know me not to have a job and not to go to work? And look at you.
Right, because value was instilled in you and purpose was instilled in you, and then that was passed down, and yeah,
And it's in the Bible.
for sure. It's good. Being steward of your time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. This was good. I'm out of ammo.
It was a lot of fun. I know there's some other things to talk about too sometime.
For sure. Yeah. That's good. Final thoughts, final words.
I appreciate it. I feel like I learned a lot. Finances and otherwise. I mean, it's just a good conversation.
Yeah. Right on.
Anyway, thanks guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Still working on that outro catchphrase, but right now I think we've been unfiltered. This was episode 6. Pleased to provide value as much as we possibly can. We're learning. Thanks for teaching us, Teacher Tim, Father Tim. Appreciate having you here, and we're signing off.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll see you next time.